Narcissists do not change. Oftentimes people are hoping and thinking and praying that their narcissist is going to finally give them the love that they desire, or the love that they think they're entitled to, or the love that they want, or they think that the relationship is going to get better, or that the narcissistic family or the parent will finally acknowledge them or give them the support or the love they desire, or that narcissistic boss will finally acknowledge them or see them for who they actually are and how they contribute to the company. Narcissists won't change. You see, you hear this throughout all of social media, and I think there's a big aspect of it's true, but what's actually going on behind that? A lot of times people want to latch onto the idea of thinking that there's hope or thinking there's potential that their partner could eventually change, or that their partner would be willing to change. First off, you have to understand that the likelihood of a narcissist changing is extremely, extremely slim and extremely rare. Narcissists don't want to approach the aspect of change or the idea of changing, because that approaches the idea of vulnerability and honesty, which is what the majority of narcissists run from at the drop of a hat. A lot of times people think that it's going to happen, and what I want to tell you is the majority of time you need to assume that your narcissist, the narcissist in your life, is not going to change. That might seem rude. A lot of people are like, well, that seems like it's limiting or stigmatizing narcissism in general. Well, it's not. It's actually just saying hey, this is the pattern that people see over a period of time. This is the habits that we see. And so that's why I'm bringing to you. Narcissists don't want to change. A lot of times you have narcissists who are stuck in their reality, that they're stuck of what they're doing and what's going on a day-to-day basis. They're like, why should I change? I'm happy with my life. Maybe my life is crappy, but it's not my fault. I'm the victim. And they always twist and blame and shape the reality. Narcissists rarely change unless there's an aspect of maybe them being honest about who they are, about what's happening, and getting into appropriate intensive therapy. The problem is the majority of narcissists don't seek out therapy. It's not something that they want to go to. It's not something that they want to self-reflect or have someone actually pointing out any type of flaws or things that are going on in their life, so they'd rather not go. Other narcissists will go to therapy for the purpose of manipulating it, but it doesn't change the behavior at home. It doesn't change the behavior in the family dynamic. They still keep abusing. They still keep hurting other people. They still have no empathy. They still aren't working on changing and growing themselves. It's just a manipulation. Other narcissists, when they get into therapy, they won't stick it out. They won't actually last longer than a couple sessions or a couple months. And then the therapist is wrong. They're attacking me. They're not making me feel safe. It's too much. I know better than therapists. All different types of excuses that they'll come up with so they don't have to continue in therapy. Therapy runs into the aspect of being honest and vulnerable. And a lot of narcissists don't like to do that. So you might be wondering, why am I making this video? My name is Ben Taylor. I run Raw Motivation. I am a self-aware narcissist. And all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, you said narcissists can't change. Because I want to be able to talk to you a little bit about it, about what's actually going on and everybody's perception. When people hear self-aware narcissists, they first off thinking, wow, I hope my partner can do that. Maybe my partner can become that way. Maybe he can become self-aware. Maybe she can understand the abusive nature and what she's doing on a day-to-day basis. The thing that you have to understand is a narcissist that's willing to acknowledge who they are and actually be aware of that is very rare in of itself. Then a narcissist that is aware of it and wants to change is also very rare, even more so. The narcissist that's aware, wants to change, and is actually going to consistently keep up with it and do it without disappearing or flaking on it, that's extremely rare as well. So what I need you to understand is when you see me on this platform and you see what I'm talking about and bringing up narcissism, I'm trying to help educate you, remember, awareness, growth, healing, and change about what narcissism is, help you build boundaries so that you stay away from a narcissist, so you work on making yourself strong and confident and self-worth so that you don't have to be reliant on another person for validation or go to a toxic person to be able to get that hit of adrenaline or whatever it might be. So I'm on this platform trying to help educate people about what it is, but it's not a process that I just started off being like, hey, I'm self-aware. It's been years. It's been years of abuse that I've contributed to in my relationships. The mental, the emotional shit that I've put people through, that I've put my wife through, that I've put people through time and time again, that have destroyed relationships, have been destructive, and have ultimately cost a lot of stuff. So what I need you to understand is that a narcissist won't change. unless they're willing to be honest. That's really the crux of it. A narcissist is more infatuated with putting up their mask, of putting up the mask of who I am, of who I think I am, of who I want to project myself to be to everybody out there. And so as long as that mask is held up, I'm okay. But as soon as that mask slips, then people actually see who I am. The shame, the guilt that kind of rages through. Some of you out there might be like, well, I think my narcissist is changing. Or how do you know if they're actually changing? Like, what's going on with that? Hard thing is, one of the things you can tell if they're changing or not is time. How are they demonstrating that change on a day-to-day basis? One way that a lot of times narcissists will try to manipulate is the idea of an apology. Having a fake apology, or apology that's very weak or very shallow, or you start listening to their apology and it's apologizing but also blaming you at the same time. An apology is oftentimes a deflection for the narcissist. They don't do apologies very often, but when they do, a lot of times it can be a deflection of like, hey, I'll apologize, but like I'm not really going to be responsible for that. I'm not really going to be accountable for that. An apology without change behavior is just manipulation. An apology without change behavior is just manipulation. Because it's saying, hey, I'm sorry for something that I've done, but I'm going to keep doing it anyways. That's the idea of even cognitive dissonance when it breaks all the way down to it of like, hey, I'm going to tell you that I love you, but I'm still going to keep cheating on you. Like, that's the idea that messes with your head so much, locks you into that aspect of a trauma bond. And that's why I work with people on a day-to-day basis to try to help them break free of the trauma bond, help them actually like rewire their mindset of what they're going through, what they're thinking, because it's so confusing of getting stuck with a narcissist and then being like, wait a second, am I the narcissist? Am I the crazy person? All that stuff is what I try to help people walk through on a day-to-day basis. The other thing you'll see when you think like, hey, maybe my narcissist is changing is you'll see that desperate attempt of them to try to plead to you of like, hey, I'm changing. Like, can't you see that I'm trying? Like, haven't you seen that I've changed? And the sad reality is like, I've said that countless times in my relationships, countless times in my marriage until I actually started to change. The thing is, you can have someone that's saying they're changing. You can have someone that's saying they're trying. At the end of the day, the words don't matter. The words don't matter at all. What matters is the action and the demonstration of the values that they're proclaiming to have. The action and the demonstration of the values that they're proclaiming to have. You see, if I say that I love you, but I'm going out and cheating on you, that's not demonstrating love. If I say I'm being honest, but I'm still lying and omitting different things in what's happening on a day-to-day basis, then I'm not demonstrating truthfulness. If I say I care about you and that I respect you, but I'm still screaming at you and calling you names, that's not demonstrating respectfulness. So many times people get confused of, well, my partner says that they love me, but then they do this. So maybe that's just all the love that they can give. Maybe that's all the love that they're capable of. No, it's not. What it is they're not willing to actually engage with who they are, work on themselves, and show love towards themselves, proper self-love, self-introspection, and working on that growth, healing, and change to be that person that they need to be in life that would also be loving and respectful for you. It's a choice that they're making every single day of choosing to ignore your feelings, choosing to ignore that love and respect that they could give to you, but they're holding back. It's hard too because you want that love. Like you want that love, you want that connection with someone else. The hard thing is if you're not careful, you'll let love kind of blind you. That hope, that potential, that cognitive distance, you'll let that blind you and you'll stay in that relationship longer than what you should, hoping that that person will finally love you, hoping that they'll finally understand. Now, when we talk about narcissism, we talk about self-awareness, I think one thing that needs to get addressed is a lot of times people think if they would only get aware or if they would only understand the hurt or the pain that I'm going through. Number one, a lot of times a narcissist is not going to understand the hurt and the pain that you're going through because they don't experience it on the same level. Their feelings, their emotions, their processes are completely different. So a lot of times they're not going to be able to engage or be able to figure that out. That's just the hard reality of it. And the other thing when we're talking about it is the narcissist actually like engaging with the fact of like, hey, this is what's happening in the relationship and I need to be honest with it. The narcissist doesn't want to get honest about what's actually happening in the relationship. They're not willing to acknowledge you. They're not willing to acknowledge what they've done. So as a result, they continue moving forward in that same cycle and it just happens over and over and over again. So I want you to be able to think of what I want you to be able to hear is that narcissists are not able to change. But let me kind of give you this last statement that I want you to be able to hear. Narcissists are not able to change if they are unwilling to acknowledge their behaviors, actions, and struggles, and honestly and vulnerably seek out consistent change and growth. That's a lot. It's a mouthful of like a lot of stuff of like, okay, you have to do this, but that's what it is. Narcissists are not able to change if they're unwilling to acknowledge their behaviors, actions, struggles, and honestly and vulnerably seek out consistent change and help. I hope that the person you're with does that. But if they're not willing to do that, they're not demonstrating that love, they're not demonstrating that respect for themselves, and they're definitely not demonstrating it for you. So please be careful when you're in that relationship. Get help and get out if you need to. If you want to talk sometime, go to rawmotivations.com. Click on the link down below. If you're listening on the podcast, thank you so much. We're on Apple, we're on Google. We're on Apple Music, we're on Spotify, like all over the place. Thank you guys so much. If you haven't, go to some of the other platforms, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. If you're listening on the podcast, follow me on Raw Motivations. Raw Motivations every single where. Continue to grow, heal, and change on a day-to-day.